significant is it to show we're living in a digital age? I just got up out of my seat and my watch went, great. You achieved another activity. You have had your standing goal achieved already. And it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. So welcome everybody, welcome to Amsterdam, welcome to More IP. Good to see so many familiar but also new faces. And indeed, it's my fifth year, or sixth actually, so my fifth More IP, and it's great to see we still have so many people attending. So welcome. As Serge already said, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we've been, but also where we're going, and hopefully answer some of your questions to that respect. When you were here last year, you heard me talk about our story, or our compelling story. And this is really about who we are, our DNA, but also the focus of our strategy and our vision. And that is really centered around trying to build a better society through better internet. So we're trying to help society by creating that better internet. So these are some of the things that we presented last year, and what you see scrolling through the screen is some of the statistics. So I thought, not being too American about the presentations and have just slides with everything going up to the top right, but a lot of things have for the past year. So while we are focusing on adding this value and developing our initiatives around the value we want to add to society, of course it is also important to continue to have the resources to do that. So that's why growth is important to us, because the internet is growing, traffic is growing, digital is growing, and if we wouldn't, then we're doing something wrong. So that's why we're showing some of these as well. The three important themes for us have been for a long time, and we will continue to focus on this, is our neutrality and independence, who we are, and our governance structure actually signifies that, but that's really important to us, and it's a big part of our DNA. And the topics we want to focus on specifically is around online safety. There's two elements to that. There is things like phishing and anti-DDoS and all of these sort of more technical things, but also protecting the weak, or fighting malicious content, but also talking about regulatory and making sure we don't end up with a splinter net or other things that can actually harm some of the great things we see in the internet. And the other one is sustainability. Of course, we can also not get away from sustainability. We're looking at things, well, what we can do ourselves and what the impact is we can have. But also from an innovation standpoint, we're looking at initiatives where we can actually help drive sustainability, whether that's in data centers or maybe with the likes of yourselves in partnerships, be more sustainable about IT and connectivity or the internet. Because on the one hand, it's great. We have things like AI coming and machine learning and all these new technologies that can really help solve some of the bigger problems, maybe even the problem of sustainability. However, the volume of data we're producing and the volume of energy the digital economy starts to consume, if we're not careful, we are becoming the problem. So we really need to figure out ways to work on this together and solve that. Hence, also putting a lot of attention on that as AMS-IX. Like I said, our mission statement is we want to help build a better society through better internet. And building a better society can, of course, mean many things, but given the fact we are an internet company, our focus is on really trying to improve the internet. And it's interesting to see that depending who you talk to, that of course has many different translations. What does that mean, better internet? And again, we've chosen two elements of defining better internet. One is more of it, faster, better, more reliable, bigger pipes or lower latency, all these things, better access, really sort of the technical aspect of a better internet. That's why you'll see us in places in the world where we'll try and help and improve access and connectivity. The other part, like I said, is really about trying to help society or local communities leverage the internet and try and make it a little bit of a better place. And this is slightly romantic maybe, but you can think of young people starting a company in their bedroom or their attic or the garage, right? And because they have access to good and reliable internet, potentially the world is their oyster and they can really try and build a business from their bedroom. So that's where internet can help. But of course there's access to information, there's education and all these things. And that's the other big part of what we believe better internet can bring to society. So that's really where our focus is when we talk about better internet and better society. That then translates into a strategy. How do we do that? And we do that across 3 axles. The most important one, we believe, is innovation. So I think we know the internet works, right? IP has been around for a while. There's some new thoughts maybe about new protocols. There's a lot of connectivity out there already. So on the one hand, you could argue it works. But then when you start to think about all the other applications that we can use, we believe innovation is really important because that diversification is really helping that element of making it better, but also making it more sustainable. So that's why we invest a lot in innovation, and we'll talk about that later today on this same stage. The second piece is about optimization, because it's great that we have all these ideas, but of course you want to have it cheap, or at least at a good cost. So optimizing our process is important to be cost effective, but it's also about making it a good experience, a user experience, and easy to do business with. So there's a lot of integration, there's investments we're doing in things like APIs, but also in route servers and all of that, but also in our own systems. Like everybody, we are going through our own digital transformation, changing our portals and changing our processes for you to make it easier to do business with us or anybody we would have on the platform. So that's where a large part of that optimization goes. And then there's growth. Like I said, growth is not growth for growth's sake, but it is serving a number of purposes. One is, like I said, we are being asked quite a lot to come and help, make it a bit better. So there's an element of growth because there is a demand. But there's also growth because it is helping us to fund the operation and be able to do things like innovation or to optimize. So that growth element, again, also has basically 2 pillars that we look at. If we dive slightly deeper into 2 elements, I don't want to talk so much about the optimization bit, but if we look at innovation and growth specifically, then again, innovation, it took us a while. And again, we'll talk about it in a bit more detail in a minute, but it took us a while to really start to innovate again. So when you look back at the history of AMS-IX, in the early days, there was a lot of innovation happening, but a lot of that was on the technology, on the platform, on the switching. Simply because traffic was growing so fast that we couldn't buy the equipment that could actually handle that traffic growth. So people like Henk Steenman, who many of you probably know, and his team have done a lot of innovation back in the day to really be able to keep up with that tremendous growth, a double digit, 25, 30, 50, sometimes more than 100% growth year over year in traffic. And they simply couldn't buy the equipment. Today, some of the sponsors are here with the likes of Juniper and Extreme and others. We can buy that off the shelf, and we know with that equipment we can at least last for the next 5 to 7 years by maybe upgrading a blade or some memory or a software. And we don't need to do the innovation ourselves. The hardware can do it. So our innovation focus shifted, and it shifted towards more market innovation or other types of innovation. And some of you see on this sort of bullet point slide or a bullseye slide, which is basically looking at, is it long-term, short-term, is it more technical, or is it more growth oriented? And you see some of these initiatives here. We can talk about all of them all day long, which we're not going to do. Again, we'll talk about it in a bit. We'll talk about some of them. But Jan van Boeschoten is here, our innovation manager, and he can talk about this for days and weeks if you want. So please find him if you're interested in some of these initiatives. And we're really excited about this because we're really starting to get some serious traction on some of the investments. The other piece I wanted to talk about is this growth element. And I wanted to touch upon it because we also sometimes are getting some questions. We're getting some questions in terms of, you and D-Kicks again, why are you in this 2-horse race growing? Or why are you coming to the Middle East or Africa? Or there is an IX already. Is one of these big IXs again that is. And I get those questions because it may look like that from the outside. But I cannot repeat enough and stress enough that almost all of the opportunities we have had internationally have been on demand. We've been asked to come in and help. And you also see that some of these are AMS-IX branded, because that was the choice of the customer again, but many of them also are not AMS-IX branded. Maybe they have powered by, but it is the local entity that is then using their name and their skills to actually do it. So a lot of that growth is actually demand-driven. And I think that's very significant to stress, because it's not us with a goal to rule the world. It's really in our aim to try and help make things better. We are asked to come in and help, and we do. But why do we think we're different? The screen is mirrored, so why do we think it's different what we do maybe than some of the others? And that's what I've tried to highlight in this slide. So like I said, a large part of it is technology, right? We're coming in to help. We bring services, we bring knowledge, but we also bring equipment and what have you to make the internet work better. So it's about the core IX services and making sure that's dealt with. And with that, we're bringing neutrality, lower latencies, and all of that. That neutrality angle is important as well, by the way, because when you do ask us to come, all of that is coming with. So if you would ask us to come, but say, you can't do neutrality, there's going to be a paywall and you need to do all this, we're going to go, sorry, that's not us. You need to then ask somebody else to come and help, because if you ask us to come and help, you're getting the whole thing, including neutrality and including better internet and including all of that. So a lot of that sits in that lower part, but also in the second layer. Right, so we want to protect the brand, of course, and with the brand, you're getting all that passion about trying to make things better. But of course, we'll also try and bring larger content networks or partners we already work with globally to help drive the local or regional traffic within that region. The other thing we're starting to look at more and more is, can we help the community locally? That can be a couple of things. A simple thing would be we maybe sponsor an event. So like here, Serge touched on it, you didn't pay an entrance fee or a fee to register. And that's because we have had sponsors that are so kind to do that for you. We may be doing that in some of the more remote parts of the world or emerging markets, where we can bring the cost down of doing business with that IX. So the entry into that IX is maybe easier for that particular region. And you can imagine that's maybe less important in the West, but when you look at emerging markets, it could actually make a difference in that. The other thing we're looking at is, can we develop maybe sort of regional hubs? So build something in one country, but through that be able to extend a lot of content and a lower latency to surrounding countries, simply because we concentrate a lot of that data very close to some of those. And for example, the recently announced Lagos opportunity is one of those, and we'll talk about that later during the event. But that's one of those where we're really looking at, can we actually make that a regional hub and have surrounding countries benefit from that as well, not just Nigeria. And then, of course, there's all kinds of things like technical help we can offer. We're starting to think about, can we build an education program so we can educate local people to become more knowledgeable and skilled about the internet, technology, routing, security, and all these things. So again, also help stimulate the local economy. We're even thinking about, can we maybe bring some of them to Amsterdam for a while and do things like a traineeship, so they can learn here from the best. Some of them are in the room, right? And then go back and apply that again in their own region. So that's really some of the value add that we're trying to bring. Another thing, Serge touched on it where he was in his past, work together with RIPE, work together maybe with EuroIX or with ISOC, and also see what type of development programs they have, and can we hop on that bus and collectively drive the internet and making it better locally. So it's not just about technology, it's not just about growing the footprint, it's not just about the traffic volume, it's also really helping that local community. Another example of that, and they were here last year, unfortunately this year. Hello, here we go. We are very close to going live, and that's in Kuching. Kuching is in Malaysia, on the island of Borneo. And many people asked us, why Kuching? And it's probably going to be a small one, right? It may only be a handful of peers, but it's probably going to be very important for the island, because what they are trying to achieve is really help the island to do things like mobile payment, bring content closer so they can do more digital schooling, for example, right? Because the distances are quite significant on the island, and it's hard to get around. So they believe by improving the digital footprint and by bringing content closer, they can really, again, help bring the island up on a higher ski. So for us, this is not about, we have another big one we can talk about. This is really about small in volume, but probably very big in value for that particular exchange there. And that's what we really bring when we talk about these opportunities, and this is what we look at when we look at the opportunity and see if we want to do it. It also means that sometimes it's not breaking the bank. It may not be $1 million operation or huge profits, but we're okay with that. Again, given our governance structure and the way we operate, because if we create that value, my handstands are really poor, so it's got to be a little bit of tap dancing if something goes wrong. But. So it's not so much about the monetary value always, it's really about that added value that we try and add. And I felt it important to talk about that a little bit because it's, like I said, we sometimes get some questions, but there's really a lot of people within AMS-IX working on this very hard and trying to build that value with local partners. Some of them, again, are in the audience, so please make sure you find them. With that, I've come to the end of what I wanted to share on our strategy and where we are. I'm here all day, I'm here tomorrow, so if you have any questions, please don't hold back. Again, thank you very much for joining. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to the AMS-IX team putting this together. And I'm really looking forward to the rest of the day. So we have a very interesting mix of talking about technological development, but also about how the market and regulatory is changing and whether that's a good thing or not, and how that's developing all of us and going to touch all of us as we work in the digital industry. So again, thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful 2 days.